Good morning. How is everybody? I'm Bradley McAllister, founder of Spidercraft. This is Monday Methods on a wonderful first Monday in January. Yay! 2020's out the door. Let's see. I think everything's working here this morning. I saw myself pop up. Arthur's in here. Mark's in here. Corey, my mom, Larry, Rich. All right, guys. What do I say? I am almost as ready as I wanted to be. You know, the last thing I always forget to do is to sharpen my tools, which should be the first thing that you do is sharpen your tools. But I'm always running around doing something different, and I didn't sharpen yet, so we'll do a little bit of sharpening here today when we get started. Good morning, Frank, and good morning, Derek. Hope everybody's doing well. Good to see you guys. Also, let me get my watch off. I got a brand new watch, and you don't need to turn with one on anyway, so I'm going to take it off and put it over here. I do truly hope everybody had a great holiday season. I had a wonderful time. I did as little work as possible for a change. Good morning, Don. I took a break, and I don't feel bad about it in the least. Christmas, went up to the family's house, had a white Christmas in North Georgia. I slept a lot. I ate a lot. And then New Year's, we just kind of took it easy. I went to bed at 10 o'clock on New Year's. I did wake up with all the gunshots around here and the fireworks. But I had a great time taking a break, and it's been good. I feel fresh. I feel charged, ready for this new year. Start working on the woodworking shows that are coming up in February. Had some great sales. Firecraft did really well here in the last couple of weeks. We had a bunch of stuff. It's one of the reasons I was running a little late. I was in writing purchase orders this morning for products to go out to folks. And all of you that are here who purchase things, I appreciate it very much. Firecraft really does appreciate your support and your business. Going back to the basics, it's the first of the year. Going to play with a basic bowl today. It's nothing fancy, but it's where we all kind of start. A lot of people start with pen turning. I skipped that step. Never been much of a pen turner, never made a pen yet, and if I don't, that's okay. It's a wonderful hobby. Just never interested me. I did start out making bowls, and so that's what we're going to do today. And a couple of things about making bowls, and especially this piece of wood that I've got today. This is a piece of maple, and it's got some interesting spalting in it. Let me take it off I've just got it sitting on here anyway. I ate ice. Yes, I did eat ice cream, Rich. And you know what? You cannot beat Leopold's ice cream. All right? Leopold's is just fantastic ice cream. And I've got my overhead camera zoomed in really tight for you today, so I'm just going to kind of set this up here, and we'll use it as our display from there. This is a piece of maple. It's actually pretty old. I'm going to guess 4 to 6 years, been laying around as a blank. It was sealed. Now, optimally, in any given situation, optimally, we have a nice piece of clean, straight grain, no knots, no cracks, no imperfections whatsoever. That's a perfect world in our blank. Well, this piece doesn't come from a perfect world. So this piece today, it's got some cracks in it, it's got some splits. It's because it's old. And yes, I could go get some fresh wood, and I'm going to. Actually, I may go up and go to my log yard this weekend. But I'm working with what I've got, and the reason I do this is so that people can see. I mean, everybody's just like me. You get wood that's hanging around, and you've stored it for a long time, and it really pains you to throw away what used to be a perfect blank when it was green, but you didn't get a chance to turn it. And that's the case here. And that brings me to a point. I think the best thing we can do if we get green wood, which is my favorite, is instead of sealing up, cutting blanks and sealing them and saving them for a long period of time, is go ahead and rough turn them as quickly as you can. Because if you'll go ahead and rough turn the piece and then put it in whatever drying process you choose to use, whether you boil it, whether you put it in your own homemade kiln, if you put it in a paper bag or a box with shavings, if you soak it in denatured alcohol, whatever method you choose to use to have it dry uniformly, and without cracks and splits, that's the best route, in my opinion, that we can go. Rough turn this guy, get all the extra wood out of there, and be done with it. Now, in this case, it's been 5 or 6 years since this blank was cut and sealed. And it's dried out, and it has got splits and cracks. And as you can see in the big line here, and you may have seen some of the posts yesterday. So it had a pretty big void right in here. All right. Well, I filled that with epoxy, and it's got some more small cracks right in the very end grain. Let's see if I can get this, because I've really got this camera zoomed in today. And I am hoping, above hopes, that we'll turn past these. But let me show you here in the overhead. Nice tight shot. You can see these small little cracks that we have here. All right. I got the light pretty bright on it today too. So these may turn away as we turn the piece, and they may not. So we'll just have to see. All right. I'm going to pop back up to the front here. So this crack that you see in the black here, it was actually pretty substantial in size. So I filled it with epoxy. Epoxy is so much stronger, in my opinion, than using CA glue for structural. I really like to know that it's glued together. CA glue is fine for little cosmetic hairline cracks and things once it's done, and you're not going to be doing the major turning on it. I don't like to trust it for this initial stage. I want to know this thing's going to stay together. Now, when I was kind of cleaning this up yesterday and rough turning it to this point, because I wanted to make sure it was going to be at least usable, this particular split was going away quickly. So it may completely go away before I'm done. But the epoxy I use, and this is coming out from Chromacraft here fairly soon, whenever they get all the packaging done. And these are just little tubes, 2-part, 1-to-1 epoxy, and one of them is colored and one's a hardener. And they've got a whole range of colors coming. So this stuff is super handy. You mix up just a little bit. Yesterday, if you saw the picture, I sucked it up into a syringe. I mixed it in a yogurt cup, sucked it up into a syringe, and injected it into the crack, and then worked it in with my finger and spread it around and shot some more on there. So this is a great way to go. You don't have to mix up from your quart stuff and all that. Just small little batches of epoxy. It's basically like using 5-minute epoxy, but you've got more time, you've got more open time. So if you want to work it into the cracks, which is really important, and that's what I was doing here. I was packing this into these cracks with my finger, and then I put a little bit more on just to let it soak in overnight. So I'm confident now that I have good structure, at least on this outer layer at the moment, to start with. It's not going to come apart. Now, the other side of this hasn't been touched yet at all. It's on a faceplate, and this is still just the raw wood as it was coming. And that's what it looks like. And this is spalted pretty heavily. And the spalting, it's interesting, it is not uniform. Let's see if I don't know if you'll be able to see that there. If I go to my overhead, I know I have such a tight shot here. I'll have to actually hold it. So here is some of the interesting spalting pattern that's on the piece, and along with some of these hairline splits. And then when we come around to the face of it, that's the end grains. The face grain side has no spalting whatsoever. And again, on my monitor, that looks pretty bright. And I'm trying to watch the other feed as well. So this has just kind of got the natural color and a little bit of blue. Might have been mildew stain that got into the weave or the grain. And then we come back around and you see this fantastic pattern. And you also see this really nice pattern on the back. Again, I've got it zoomed in real tight. So there's some nice wood here. All right. We'll see what happens. Let me jump back up here. Let me check on the questions, the comments, see how everybody's doing. Don's in from Michigan. Corey's talking there. It's warmer in Georgia. Yeah, it was cold this morning. There was frost. I got the heat going. Ronnie's coming to us from Norway. Thank you, Ronnie. Great to see you. Let's see. Hey, Lan's in here. Good morning, Lan. Mark says, my first turning was a cup and a ball toy. We all have to start somewhere, don't we? So anyway, my first order of business, I got this tape on here. That was just to keep my little resin from running out of the side. That was just some painter's tape, nothing fancy. And I hate the fact that one of my monitors has some piece of software trying, you can't see it, but there's a piece of software trying to tell me I need to install an update, which is, I hate it when that happens, but I'm going to walk over to probably in a couple of minutes and get that out of my way. So I've just got this on a little, it's like a 2.5-inch faceplate. It's got its 8 screws in it, and that's all good. And so what I've done for you today, I want to show you this, and I may, have changed it over time. I have set this up with a nice, close, tight shot for you, so that when I'm cutting either from this side or as I just rough this down, I want you to be able to see the tool here really well. Now, since the camera is far too far above my head right now, I can't just reach up and change it. And it's not a fancy one that's remote and all that kind of stuff. These cameras have been on the road for years. But anyway, I want you to have this nice shot and you'll be able to see a tool. I want you to be able to see a tool really nice when it's in place up against the wood. I wanted to get you right in there today. All right, so that shot's pretty tight. The end shot is fairly standard. See it from the end. Okay, and then of course the front shot is what it is. So let's go back to the overhead because I need a sip of soda here. And real quick, I'm going to run into the control room here and fix this monitor image that is driving me nuts because I can't see it all. All right. Now I did say, I'll pop up back up here, that I want to sharpen up some tools. I'm going to use all my standard tools that I use most every week, my Easywood tools, carbide cutters, carbide insert tools, and my Carter & Son bowl gouges, maybe the scraper. And these are actually still pretty sharp. And I may just leave them and see how they do. Optimally, yes, it should be freshly sharpened before you start anything. But I hadn't done much with these. I may throw this one. This is 5/8. I may go throw this over here on the grinder real quick. And this is the one I'm going to kind of be my workhorse. Hey, Joe made it in. Good morning, Joe. And then I've got a 1/2 inch, and I've got 3/8 from Carter & Son. I think my 1/2 inch is where I want it at the moment. So I'm just going to jump on the 5/8 here real quick and sharpen it up. I don't have a camera over there. I keep promising you that I'll get you one, and I haven't yet. So I'm just going to give you this overhead shot for a minute while I jump over here and freshen this guy up. I will show you in the camera here. I do use the Wolverine system. All right, and my stick out, I use, you can't see it. I use the notch, the V notch of the tool slider, and that sets my stick out from the tip to here. So I actually just use what's the V notch on the unit itself. I stole that idea from Jimmy Clues, so it's always the same no matter where I go. My angle is approximately 45 degrees on my tools. I just kind of live in the middle of the road. It's how I learned what I learned, and it works okay for me. Doesn't mean that it's the best angle for you. It's the one that I am comfortable with. I've been using for years, so I haven't changed it. So I'm just going to freshen this up real quick. I hate it when the tool slides in the jig. I've had the jig since I started turning. That's how long they last. I want to get my tip just right. That looks pretty good. All right. So, and I'll show you right here. Here is the freshly sharpened, freshly cleaned up. I'm not going to worry about down in here, but there's the profile. It is basically a 45. Good morning, Steve. How is Colorado out there today? Getting any snow? Actually, it's warm out there, I saw. It's supposed to be in the 50s. So there's the profile. Pretty standard profile that I use on the tool. Again, this is the Carter & Son 5/8. She's looking a little rough down here around the corner. I don't have the heel ground away on this one. I may go ahead and do that. Actually, I'll leave it alone. I'm going to leave it right there just to see what happens, how it works today. So, there we are with that. Come here, change cameras. So this will probably be the tool I use the most. We'll lay it up front. And again, I'm going to use... that's the 5/8. This is a 1/2 inch. Lay it out here. I've got 2 3/8, and I'll show you. I run different grinds on my 3/8, which would be a 1/4 if it was a Sorby. One traditional, one with a long grind on it for the small tool. I just like to have one of each. It works for me. Works well, and looks like you're seeing that okay. So we'll lay those guys out there. As far as my carbide tools, whatever I might use is going to end up being your basic round, square, and detail, the pointed diamond shape. So whenever they come into play, I use the square one to make the tenon, the detail for whatever detail work, and the round one for shaping curves. I don't know exactly what shape I'm going to make here today. So, these may come into play, may not. We'll see. We'll keep them right over here on the rack where they belong. Tailstock, let's bring the tailstock into place. One of these days I need to check the center on this. I think it's okay. I don't know how far, if it's completely out of line or not. But that's all good. Tailstock up just to be safe. Okay. And I'll show you that on the end camera, how that's pulled right in there. Now the first thing I'm going to do is start to pare away this corner right in here. Okay, so I'll start, and this is all set. This is ready to go in the chuck, so I don't have to worry about my tenon. That means we'll be cutting through our resin here. It's just a little bit of resin, so it shouldn't be a problem. I've got my low style tool rest in here. He says we can see a view of the tool rack you have on the left side of the screen. Oh, can you see a view of the tool rack on the left side of the screen? Not without turning a camera real crazy like. I could take a picture of it with a phone and pop it up on the Spiracraft page for you today. I don't have any cameras that I can easily turn. The tool rack that you're seeing, let me jump back over here. This tool rack is from Easywood Tools for the trade shows. That one, it's got tools on the front, tools on the back, slot down here, and cabinet underneath. And it works great for that. It's something they made and they gave me for doing the trade shows out on the road. Right next to it is actually my major tool rack, which you just can't quite see. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelves of waterfall style garment hook racks, and they allow me to put my tools. And I wish you could, well, I'll tell you what I'll do, just for you guys, just for you, Steve. I'm going to turn my other camera, this main front camera, and you'll be able to see it a little bit. It works great because chips don't get in it or anything else. So I'll turn this for you, and then of course I'll have to get it set back up. So let's see if I can get just to where you can see that other rack. There you go. So they're waterfall. They're for hanging coats and clothes and shirts on in a retail store, and it's fantastic because it never holds any chips to speak of. I've got 5 racks in here. It's on a grid wall, but it can also be on a slat wall, and so everything just lays right here. Tools pop in, pop out. No chips. None of that. It's fantastic, easy to clean. If you do get trips on there, you just blow them off, whatever brush. It works great. You can load a ton of tools in here. I started using these on the road last year. Yeah, last year at the trade shows, at the woodworking shows, and it works great. It's just fantastic for holding my tools. So let me come back over here now, like so. And I hope that helped. Everything looks good in here. I'm in the control room again. That's where that one camera comes from. So I hope that helped help me explain. Yeah, it is a great system. I would sell them. I've thought about having Spirecraft sell them. They're not expensive, except for the shipping, because the shipping on the grid wall or the panel. But it's something I think about. So I got a ton of them, and I get them from a wholesale retail display supplier, and they work great. They really do. And I've not seen anybody else use it, but hey, they're really cool. Hey, some is here. I'll get it right someday. But the rack is great. So let's make some chips. Let's make a mess. I'm going to shift you over to the end camera, number 2. Take a quick sip. And again, I don't have any fancy. I don't have any ideas in mind actually on this particular piece today. Just going to be whatever it's going to be. Okay. And hopefully everything is good. Speed. Oh, let me double check that I have that on there tight because I was talking. Yep, nice and snug. And once I get this roughed around into shape and have done everything on the back side that I want to, we'll turn it around and put it in the chuck. Been super happy with, pop this on, with the new face masks. Went through a whole bunch of them in the last couple of weeks. I got more on the way again. These things are great. Working out here yesterday and pop it up. So you can have a sip of water, you can talk on the phone, you don't take your goggles off. I've been super happy with these little guys. So we got them in stock, we got more coming. They're not expensive, they're like $24.95. Drill some holes right here in the front so you don't fog up so much. And they're pretty cool. That's my pitch on face masks today. All right. Speed, they'll turn it all the way down. We're not going to go screaming along. I'll turn about 900. So that's nice and steady. Nothing too crazy going on. And I'm just going to start to work this corner off of here. And I'm curious to watch and see what happens to the split. Now let me go overhead because I see in the monitor this is a great overhead shot. I'm so happy that I did this for you today. So I just start in and I pick up the bevel's right. Now the bevel's right there is rubbing. You can't quite see it. As the tool comes around, you can see the bevel making the contact there. Just barely supporting the cut. Okay? And I just keep rolling on around the corner. Now the tailstock starts to get in the way pretty quick, so I'll take it back out of here in a moment, but I just wanted to make sure that I was all set. I'm going to move my power control out of the way. Oh, and I tripped something. That doesn't, oh, I got my heater going on here. That's probably what happened. Hopefully I didn't trip anything else. I guess I'm warm enough. Let me flip. I'm running my lathe on a inverter. Oh, come back to me. There we go. There are more circuits coming into the shop here eventually. All right, that was fun, wasn't it? I love losing power in the middle of something. So you can still see where we at. We're on the overhead camera. That's where we're at. So I lost the power there, but it's back now. Life is good. Okay, my tailstock is in my way, so I'm going to go ahead and take it out of here. Now hopefully I'll keep my head out of the way as well. That's the one thing about this particular camera angle I have set up for the ends right now, is I tend to get my head in the shot just a little bit sometimes. So hopefully I'll stay out of the way. Now I want to show you here, let me stop. There is a knot right here, okay? And this grain, because it is spalted, it is got various densities to it. And so you may see the tool jumping some. There's some of it's hard and some of it's soft. The spalting, which is so pretty, is the wood starting to rot, right? And so it does make for some issues in the variance in the density of the wood. Oh, I meant to show you that on the end camera. My bad. So as you see me starting to cut in here, you can see the pattern that's in here. There's the knot. Right there, we're cutting through the resin. And the resin is down into that deep into this split, but not into these little spots out here. But this piece has a great pattern of the spalting in here. Okay, again, there's a little knot right in there, so we'll see what we get with that. I still think, well, let me leave it on the end camera for a second. You can see what I'm up to here from the end. And then what I'm doing is I'm just working my way down here to the flange for the chuck jaws to sit on. And then I'm going to connect all this up to the top. Some of that noise you hear is the resin. So it looks like our split is starting to disappear, which is good. And we're getting more and more of our spalted grain. Got a little bounce going on right in there. We'll get that squared away. So that I don't have to move my tool rest, you can see that I have I'm leaving a pretty big wall here, but I will end up connecting these 2 points. I'm keeping an eye on where my left finger is up here. Keeping an eye on that. And this is where I know where I'm going from there. Okay. Take some more of this away up here. And let me give you the overhead on that. literally just trying to connect the dots. All right. So again, it looks like we have a little bit of the splits or checks in here, but not a lot. And I'm on the overhead, so you can see right there. Okay. I'm going to move my tool rest in, come back and make another pass. I'm not worried about this being perfectly clean yet. I'm just starting to get honed in on it. Let me give you the end shot for this. Now, one thing that I'm doing by leaving this extra material here, I could add a rim on it, a decorative rim up here if I so chose. Leaving myself a lot of options because I don't have a real plan just yet here. Let's see what that pattern looks like. So the more I've been cutting in here, the more the pattern is coming around the sides, which is pretty cool. I like the way that looks. I'm going to take my goggles off for just a second, just to kind of get a better inspection in here of what this looks like. Get a better close-up look. See, I've got a little split there, little teeny one right in there. So one thing we can do is, if we want to know what this is going to look like with a clear finish on it, I think I just stuck my head in your way. Let me walk around here. I'm going to get some alcohol. Just put some alcohol on a paper towel. And it's denatured alcohol. It'll dry down. It'll dry up right away. But if you're curious, what's going to happen when you put a finish on? Is it going to get lighter, darker? Well, we know it's going to get darker. And so there we are. Here's a little bit of denatured alcohol. And I'll just flood part of this. And so it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea what might happen. Now this piece, me, I like color. I may end up coloring this because with these dark lines in the spalting, all the dark spalted lines. So if I was to use a light color, not a yellow, because this is too close to yellow, but a light teal, a washed out teal, or a washed out magenta to make it almost pink. I would have great contrast from colors in here. So that's a potential, that's an option that what we might be able to do. So I'm liking the way, you can tell I've been down here in Georgia too long. I'm liking the way this is looking. I want to make a few more cuts coming up through here, up the main body. I'm thinking about leaving something here in the rim, but I won't know until I start to clean it up. It does have some checks in there in the outer part, so I may end up cutting it off. Get our face shield back on. Now I'm going to switch over. I think this tool is my slightly smaller tool. And just start to clean this up. Okay. like I say, there's a bit of undulation in it, just because the softness of the wood it is quite soft, but I do love the pattern. And in the overhead, you can't quite see it yet because it's zoomed way in. It's kind of starting to develop an OG shape, which is kind of nice. It's not a bad look at all. I was going to put in the text for the post on Monday Methods that there's many different bowl shapes, and you can choose so many different ones. And that's one of the things I like about making bowls is you just have fun. Yeah, I've made some ugly bowls and I've made some beautiful bowls. Experiment with the different ones. When they have a nice, the curves flow nicely for the size of the piece and the proportions, it makes for a really fun piece. And you can start to see here this flange, if I use my coat that I've left here, that we could do some decorative work here if you wanted to. So lots and lots of options. Again, I'm going to make one or two more passes back in here just to clean this up, and then I'm going to come up to the top, do whatever it is I'm going to do here, which I'm not sure yet. We'll just see, and then we'll be turning this around and putting it into the chuck. Okay, so let's go back to the end shot for you. Shakes the whole building. You're getting a little too much vibration there. Now it's not enough speed. I've got plenty of shoulder here. I'll come back and clean that up. I don't know why it's giving me a little trouble right there today. Much better. So I want these, pretty much these are my finished cuts now, so that I alleviate as much sanding as possible. Yeah, Jim, I don't know why that vibration was there, because the next cut, it was gone. I said this wood is quite soft, and if the bevel really touches it all, it's more of a float the bevel kind of cut. If the bevel touches it all, it will tend to make it want to bounce. So here the bevel is not touching, I'm actually just floating off of it a little bit. And other than that hump I've got right there that I made myself, right there, I'll take that hump out and to feather that back in. Let's try one more pass. Because the tool has to change angle quite a bit as it comes around that corner. And I'm going to blend this up to my rim that I've been making up here. So I'm just taking some light passes to finish this blend in. Hopefully I'm not in your way. And it looks like I can jump you to the overhead now, because I'm back up in that overhead area. So you can just see that coming in. So if you look right behind the cutting edge, you'll see that the bevel is just not quite touching. It's just sitting off of the piece. Now I have to decide what I want to do up in here. And a lot of it's going to have to do with the splits and checks. Alright, let's take a look at this. Pop my goggles off here for a second. So there is a pretty good size split right check that has now shown up right in here, and that's part of the downside of working with wood of this nature. And you can probably see it if I can get you. It looks like I'm trying to find it here in the overhead. It's right there. You can't quite see it in either shot because I have moved everything. So I'm going to move the headstock just a tick. Just a tick so you can see more of that anyway. The wood is maple. About 6 years old maple. Okay. So these small splits that, like this one now, where is it? Well, it doesn't show up in the with the lights on. I mean, I can see it plain as day right there where my finger is. You can't quite see it. This is something I'll use. I will do a CA fill on, because that's just going to be not structural at this point once I turn that away. I do want to make one more pass across here. I'm not completely happy with the cut with the tool that I've gotten. So I'm going to pop back over to the end for you there. Put my goggles back on. See if I can't make another pass across here. Famous last words real quick like. And clean this up. Just a little bit better. Okay, and that's much nicer, other than there's something, it's got to be that split that I'm feeling. There's a split right there. So that's what I'm feeling, is those little splits. This cut, that last cut is real nice. That's fantastic. A little bit of tool mark right in here. See if I can't clean that up. I know I get to fussing with these things. And it's always fun to practice. You know, I got plenty of wood. And the issue here, I should grind the heel. I'm going to grind the heel off of this real quick, because that's what's happening when I turn that corner. And the other thing I can do is I have a real small, my little 1/4 3/8 tools that with the heel ground off, and I might just use that for making this. This is a fairly sharp turn right in here. And you see, as I sweep around, it was picking up the heel. So if I grab my little 3/8, 1/4 if it was a Sorby, and raise that tool wrist up, it'll let me come around that corner, and I'll show you here in the overhead what tool I'm using. So very short, traditional style profile, virtually, and the heel is ground away back in here. That's going to let me come around that corner nice and easy. All right, back to the end there real quick. Back to the end, he says, hit that button. Yes, I mean, what I'm fussing with would easily sand out, but it sure is nice. to be able to do it with a tool. Okay, so that made that corner nice and easy. No marks whatsoever, no heel rubbing. So that's what I had going on, is as I made that sharp turn around the corner with the tool, I was just dragging the heel a little too much. And I get a better cut up here with the bigger tool. So now that I've got this fixed, very light. I don't want to take too much more material out of here. Although the more I cut away, the better the spalting looks. I don't like that change right there. I'm not a perfectionist, I just like it right. And I'm stopping here so that I can change camera for you. Back up to the overhead. So now you can see as the tool comes around right here. And I'll make a couple of passes in here to blend this together. Okay. Let's see here. Clear that out. Am I happy with the profile? So what I'm doing now is I'm stepping back and not cutting or anything, and I'm just looking at this profile. I've got a black tabletop out there and trying to decide, do I like everything about the profile? Is there anything I want to change? Because having the curve or the arc be smooth, so I've got a high area right in the center. The curve kind of has it kind of flattens out for a second. It starts up, curves, and it kind of flattens out. So I'm not super happy because of the way I've got the shape now. So I want to come back in here now that I'm looking at this contour, and it's so important. I'm going to stop this for a second. It's so important that you stop and look at the profile with some contrast. So when I look at the black top that's out here on this counter, I can now see what that curve really looks like, especially if I move these silver tools out of the way, because that's so important to have that nice profile. Turn your head whichever way you need to. I mean, it's not horrible, but it's kind of high right in there, and I'm splitting hairs. I know, and I got my crack there, but I'm going to take a little bit more of that out. Okay, and I need to defog for just a second there. And I'm going to look, I think I'll leave you with the end shot. It's going to be the best shot to get going there. All right. We're almost done. I'm fussing around too much with this on the back side, but that's just how I am. Raise that tourist up just a fuzz. So what I'm going to do now, let me show you here again from front. I'm going to actually look. I'm going to start to cut, and I'm going to look over here. So I'll start looking at the tool, but then I'm going to watch the cut on the opposite side because I want to fix this section right in here. And then I may get my little tool out, my smaller tool again, once I have changed this. I might just do it right now, as a matter of fact. So that's a fairly wholesale change to this curve right in here. Let's see, you can't see this. You can see from the end, if I decide that this ends up too long, because I've been keeping changing this curve, I can always shorten this up when I turn it around. This doesn't have to be the bottom. You know, I can move the bottom up. I'm not committed by any means to what I've got for length in this, or I can leave it, if I like it this way, that I can leave it there, but I can always take some of that off. And again, I don't mind taking a lot of this wood away, because I know the more I take away, the better chance I have of removing the splits that are in this piece of particular wood. I'm going to go back to my bigger tool now, move a bit of material, because I've kind of made a wholesale change here. So we're just reorchestrating this profile. That's one of the beauties, is nobody knows what you started with. And just work at it till you're happy, till you have a shape that pleases you. Okay, I like this much, much better now. There was just something about that was bugging me. So I'm much happier with that change right in there. Take a little bit more to blend this in. Sweep around. And I'm going to move this tool rest in a little bit closer. I'll get this to where I'm satisfied yet. The other thing I am going to have to keep in mind as I keep making this area up here thinner is that with those little splits and cracks that I have in there, I will get some vibration out of that. Clean up this rake since I've changed all this. She's not the same thing we started out with, but that's all right. Take a good look at that curve that I've changed. All right. Now let's get the rest of this back blended in. And when I get way up here, I can hear that little tick of the splits. Okay. So I've taken a whole ton of wood out of this guy. It's kind of interesting. As I played with the shape. And it's kind of fun here, and as I've made this taller, you get to see more of the spalting in the profile there. I'm just working to get rid of these tool marks that I'm picking up here today a little bit. I'm going to have to go ahead and put some glue in these little splits up here real soon. You can hear that pitch change. Okay. So I'll probably cut some of that bottom off, but let's get a little bit of super glue. Let's get a little bit of CA glue into these. Now you can see the profile pretty well there. It's not the bowl that I started out with, but that's okay. It's still going to be a pretty cool piece. Like I say, some of these little chips, divots that are splits that are in here, and what I want to do, the best way that I can do this, because I don't need that super close overhead anymore, I don't believe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, well, there's no good shot to hide me getting up on the stool. So I'm going to leave it on the end camera, and I'm going to make a change to my overhead camera here real quick. Nope. Since it's not on a remote, so that we can look down on this piece now. Just a couple quick adjustments here. Get things into view. Much better. where I can still move that around. Change the focus just a little bit. That should do the trick, I do believe. Yeah, I think so. And just in case I have to do some more adjusting, I'm just going to leave. You guys won't mind if I leave my little step stool right behind me there, will you? No? All right, let's see. Yep, Jerry, you are correct. There are a couple of cracks in there. That's why I was starting to slow down. Let's see. Jim says, "What's the wood?" Yep, it's maple. The spalting, a hat. Yeah, it's not a hat, but the hat man is here speaking. Yeah, and like I say, Jerry, you are correct. There are some splits in there. You can hear them, and that's what I was going to talk about more. That's why I stopped when I did, so that we can fill these guys up. I was wondering if you've been down here yet, Jerry. If you've been over to my neighbors over there in Brooklet. And if you'd been in town, I was going to have to give you grief if you'd been in town and didn't come to see me. And I'm going to take this faceplate off of here. It's just fouling me up. So let me get to the overhead here, or the front shot. So I'm going to fill some of these with some black CA on the back side to get that cleared up, and then we'll turn this guy around. Yeah, Jerry, I'm going up. I may go up to North Georgia to my woodlot this weekend, and see about picking up some wood. I'd love to find another ambrosia log. I haven't had any in several years since I had that one really nice one. But if you're coming, bring me a stash of green. I'd love to have it. It'd be good fun. I've just been working through this wood. I was talking about it earlier. You know, you get wood and you've saved it for 4 or 5 years, and you just hate to turn it loose, as the saying goes. So I'm turning it, and knowing it's not optimum, but I want to show folks how that you can turn it safely if you're careful. And I had originally epoxied the big crack that was in here, and I was comfortable with that being completely glued together. Now that area is completely gone now, and that's fine. I'm not worried about it. It's gone. And what we have now is just some small thin cracks. And again, it's not perfect world, but it's not the end of the world either. I'm going to pop this in the overhead while I walk over to get my black CA. I could use clear, but since I'm going to I'm certain I'm going to dye this, so I don't mind it having a black squiggle here and there. So I'm going to use a little bit of the Starbond medium black on this. So we got our Starbond out there. And let me see here. Okay. I've got my black, and we are in the overhead. Now you can't quite see the cracks because of the bright overhead light that's going on, but you'll see them as I fill them in here, right here, and then they'll stand out very well. Again, CA glue is not my favorite. It's not my first choice, but it's better than having it come apart. Now, once this gets sanded, these lines will be just little teeny hairlines. And you know, guys, if you watch here on Monday Methods regularly, I was doing my birdhouses. Jerry, did you miss my birdhouses last week with my dye? And I was going to do a water base, mix up some water base and get back out here, but then New Year's came, and I just didn't get to it. So you can see these cracks are taking a fair bit of adhesive in. And I've got the same thing, and it's right in the end grains, of course, which is where these are. And we're not going to really turn any more away from this backside. So we know we'll be strong enough. There's even a fiber right there just coming out. We'll be strong enough to turn our front side. And then when this is all said and done, we'll sand this away. But I'm gonna keep doing these. And again, this is a medium until these guys are full. And I'm letting that soak right on down in there. Now it does have a little bit of effect on the finish, like when I put the dye on, because some of the fibers will be sealed and it may not dye quite the same. That's why I'm not a huge fan of it. And if you just go natural, it doesn't affect it as much. But if the finish has to take, sometimes putting the CA on. So if I use the black, it just makes it an absolute. And you can see here, this is all going to get turned away. There's no cracks that are visible in the face grain areas at all. And like I said, this wood is actually quite soft. And that's part of why the bouncing and the vibration, because of the different densities with the spalting going on. Because it's sucking this stuff up like a sponge. And I'm okay with that because that'll strengthen all the way around these splits. And I say it's taken in quite a bit, so they probably go all the way up. We'll turn the front side, and then we may take this back off and put some more in. Let that go in for a second. I'm going to turn it over to the front. Yeah, these do go all the way through, but we haven't cleaned up the front yet, so we'll see what happens when that gets turned away. Now the epoxy gel that I used on the back, that would be stronger for these, but it's merely a matter of time. If I wasn't, just out here live doing this, I would epoxy these because I know they would be stronger and last for a long, long, long time. But it doesn't set up super fast. It takes a few hours for it to set up. Okay, so the CA is the next choice to take care of that. Let's go ahead and shoot these guys with a little accelerator, and then we'll turn this guy around and put it in the chuck and get to work on the front. Okay, good deal. Michael McEwen, good day, all. You're west coast of Canada. How's it going up there, Michael? I hope you're staying warm. It is the middle of winter, right? Let's see. Easy chuck, 3.5-inch jaws. I think that's what we'll use today. So you use Jerry, I see you use the carbide, the Easywood carbide turned into brass. That's cool. I saw your post about that. I think it was this morning or last night. I saw your post on Facebook, I guess it was. And that looked pretty neat. Going swimming. Swimmingly up in the west coast of Canada. I know I can't say that very well. All right, let's get these chuck jaws out of here and get along with this guy. It's a nice day. The sun is shining. I cannot complain at all about what is going with the weather here today. It's going to be about 60 degrees. We had a bunch of rain for New Year's. That's gone. Um, 3.5s. At least I've got my tool drawer organized for my chuck jaws these days. I'm getting somewhere on my organization. And I know that's way too big, so we'll use the little zoom ring and back that down. And I sure hope I turned this the right size when I did it. Oh yeah. I actually came out here yesterday and worked on this and played a little bit. Just for fun. Okay, and so now you can see where we're at here. I've got, less than a quarter, well, maybe right about a quarter of a gap. Could be a little bit tighter, but that's all right. This wood is soft, and this is going to crush in a lot. So, and I'll show you. You see that turn? That's pretty snug. And another snug one. Now I'm going to let that sit for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And it's crushing, it's squeezing these fibers in. It's this wood, like I say, is quite soft, and it's compressing those fibers. And I've found this over time with these softer woods. If I'll go ahead and let it sit, then come back and tighten it again, I'll get a little bit more crush in there, because you don't want to have it come loose after the fact. And so it's better to wait a minute now, 30 seconds a minute now, and then come back and do it than to do it later, because sometimes when you turn a little bit more and tighten it up a little bit more, well, it'll actually make a piece shift. And so that after you've turned it all exactly the way you want it, and then it shifts, well, that's not good. So we're going to let that sit, and I'm going to do something here real quick. I'm just going to put you in the overhead, and I'm going to take care of a little something I got to do here. I just apologize for, it's going to take me just a minute, and let's see if I can't do what I need to do. It's one of those phone things. It's just take a sec. Okay. That should have taken care of it. You know how we can't live without our phones now? And I just had a little something I knew might come up. Okay, good deal. So, ready to go. We've glued up our cracks in the back here. We're in our chuck. Now, let's see, and I'll go back to the overhead, just how much this handle turns again. It was tight, right? I've tightened it like 4 times. Not a lot, but just enough to squeak it down a little teeny bit more. So that makes me comfortable that I've got it where I want to be now. Now you can see on the end, which is where we're going to be working, it's still got all its natural goofiness to it, and that's the way it looked in the blank, just kind of black and mildewed. And that's where some of these dark stripes that you're seeing, some of these dark areas right in here, I know that light's kind of bright, but that's where some of that's coming from. Okay, so let's go to the end camera. And what the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this face trued up. And once I have the face trued up, I say I need to focus that overhead camera a little bit better. Once I get the face trued up and determine the thickness I want here on this edge, I'm going to go ahead and take the chuck back off, leave it in the chuck, piece in the chuck, and I'm going to go ahead and glue up this top rim with the CA glue. Because I don't want to start taking wood away until I have this rim stabilized. All right. So let's see here. Let's get my mask back on. Safety first. Drop that tool rest down. I always like to slow my speed back to 0 and then start up again. And I'll just draw in from the middle out, just to clean this up. Turn around, come in right there. And we can take a look at, there's the one split, there's the other split, and there's another one right there. So I'm going to take a little bit more off of this. I'll probably leave this rim fairly thick, just because of the structural. And you can see here in the overhead, the thickness of it, less than my finger. Okay. So we'll leave that right there. But let's take a little bit more wood off of this, and then we're going to go ahead and clean these cracks up and fill them up. And what I'm doing right here is I'm looking, as I was making those cuts, I was looking right down. You can't quite see it. I got to fix that camera. I was looking right down the sides. I was looking from over top, looking right down the side, and cutting this parallel for about the first 2 inches. And I need to take a little bit more out of here, right in here, to match the curve on the back side. Oftentimes we'll work in about 2-inch increments, give or take. Okay. And that's pretty uniform, right in through there. All right, just stop and glue that up. So that we'll make we'll pop this off of here. We're going to leave it in the chuck, and we'll just stand it up on end and take care of these guys. And I do need to fix that overhead camera some more. I do believe. We'll see here how it looks when I turn this around and set it upright. Yeah, I think I want to. I think I'm going to zoom it back up a little bit. Okay, it's just a little too close. So let me give you just that end camera for a second while I jump back up on my handy dandy quick stool. And we're just going to pull this guy out a little bit. Just so you can get the overall feel for what's going on there. And I'll fix the focus real quick, and then I'll have her back on for you. And I actually also changed the brightness so it won't be so overly bright. Although I'm going to fix that just a tick. One day I'll have a person who handles this stuff, Until then, it's just me. Actually, let's make that go about right there. Okay. One more adjustment. I do apologize for the extra time. Leave it right there. Okay. The beauty of live, you don't get any edits, whether you wanted them or not. Okay, so I've got it turned around here. My other camera's now adjusted where you can see the entire piece pretty well for the most part. It's got a little different color to it now. I changed the exposure there. We've got a sizable crack right in here and a couple 3 small ones right in here. So we'll come in again. And fill these up. There's a little bit of one right there as well. That'll be interesting to see what the spalting looks like as we start to turn down into the piece. And there's going to be some more. As this runs through, it may turn away. It may end up staying there. Hard to say for sure. But we're done turning up here on this first 2 inches anyway. We're just adding a little bit of strength. Again, it's not, I don't really think of it as great structural strength. It's enough to hold things together so that it shouldn't shift too much. This piece is going to move, and there's going to be a lot of movement in it. And another thing, I'll hit these with some accelerator. Another thing you can do is if you hit it with the denatured alcohol, it will sometimes make cracks that you're not seeing show up. People always, one of the first things people always ask me out at the woodworking shows when doing the classes, they come up, they talk about, you know, my pieces crack as soon as I turn them. And the number one reason our pieces crack is just like this piece of wood here. They're already cracked when you started. Now, this one you can see them, but a lot of times if you're working with shorter pieces of wood, like say you've got a 16-inch piece of wood that somebody gave you that was cut off a tree and it laid around for a while, and you cut a bowl blank out of it, more than likely it's got splits and checks in it that are running in from the ends. And even if you cut off what you see, when you start to turn that piece, there's microscopic versions of these cracks already in there. And when you turn the piece, it releases the tension and those cracks open up. And as you can tell, Jerry Meismer, you know, he said he could hear the crack that in this piece as I was turning it, and as I could as well. And that's why I was being careful. And it's so important, especially when going in, I knew that I was working with a piece of wood that was compromised. It had some splits and checks in it. I mean, I knew that yesterday. And so I was well aware and listening for that sound. And I talk about this a lot, is that I don't wear earplugs and I don't play music because you need to hear what's going on. A couple of weeks ago, I was turning a piece of poplar out here, and when it cracked, and it had no cracks in it when I was turning it, and it cracked while it was being turned, and you can hear it in the audio on the playback. I mean, I heard it loud as day in here, and it just went pop, almost like a firecracker. And then there was a crack, and once I relieved the stress in the wood, it went, and it just separated. And you had earplugs in or the music on, you'd have never heard that, and then that piece could come apart. So you always want to be careful with that. So let me pop back overhead here and put the last shots of glue in these, and then we'll hit them with some CA or some accelerator, excuse me, and we'll move along. Now this piece is going to be interesting because I've made a fairly deep center with an interesting turn to it. I always like a good challenge. I have fun with whatever shapes I make. Okay. Always have a good time. Alrighty. And like I said, as you can see, if I hold this up now here, it's actually fairly deep, fairly narrow in the center, down through here. So it doesn't have your traditional bowl, salad bowl shape by any means. Definitely more of a decorative piece, which as far as I'm concerned is all the better. That means I can do anything I want to with it. Have a good time. Alrighty. We'll get you onto the end camera, get you right in there. We'll start taking the center out of this guy. Curious to see how this pattern in the spalting shows up when we cut down into the inside. I may go throw this back on the grinder here real quick and freshen that edge up. I think I will. Just real quick, touch that up. Cutting through that resin in the beginning. A little bit of knot in this soft wood. Let's get this freshened up. Getting attacked by my microphone wire. All right, one more little pass right there. And we're good to go. All right. And off we go. Now I forgot about this. I always show both styles of tools. So if you're a carbide tool owner, say you own Easywood Tools or any of the other carbide brands, you don't have bowl gouges, I don't want you to feel left out. I'm just going to grab a round style carbide cutter here. Make sure that it's at the center axis of the lathe. Alright. This is a mid-size style tool. Okay, it's Easywood Tools. You can hear that little bit of vibration in it. There's probably some additional little cracks back in here that are making that kind of a harmonic. Round cutter in carbide is the equivalent of your bowl gouge. Kind of doubles as a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge. And what I'm doing is I'm working my way and I'm getting real close to starting to follow that profile on the back side. And if I turn you to the overhead, You can't quite see both of them, but so I'm following the back side here with my front side fingers, if you will. Don says, would I smooth out the rim's edge now? I probably will, as a matter of fact, before I go too much further. And I can actually do it with this round tool now that you mentioned it while we're right here. Because it has moved a little bit from before. And one of the beauties, let me go, I can't win with my my camera shots today. You can't quite see this in the overhead. I'm just running around the corner, and the beauty of these round carbide tools is I can go all the way around the corners. And never have to change the tool rest. Now the end grain gets a little bit of tear right there. Just a little teeny bit. And if I wanted to see if I could cut that a little bit cleaner, I don't know if you can see this in the end or not, I'll come in with my really small 3/8 gouge. And you see that real fine wisp coming off of there? That takes care of any of that little bit of tear out on the end grain. That carbide cutter was not super fresh and sharp and crisp. It's not dull, but it's not brand new either. And so I can use this tool and do the same thing with my small little tool. And I can come right around the corner there. Okay. And clean that right up. Same net result will come in. It's interesting, as soon as I relieved a little bit of tension there, the piece started to move right there. And see, there's a tick right in here somewhere. That's the glue lines ticking. Okay. So that's all good there. So let's go back to a ball gouge. And that's the CA glue you hear there. And we're going to pick up the cut right about here. Now, there's a lot of extra wood right underneath where I'm at right here with the tool. I want to get myself to about my second stage. Should be about that far in. And to give you an idea of how I'm gauging the thickness as I make the cut, so I don't stay over here, but I look, and I kind of look over the side. So as I come up to make this cut, come in, look over the top, and that way I can gauge that wall thickness right in through there, okay? Now I may, just for yucks, I may make one more pass up here and cut some of that glue off. It's going to make a lot of noise. It's going to go bang, 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 click, click, click. No, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Okay. So that's fairly uniform. I've got one little lip right there, just as we start around the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and take this center section out now, down to where we are out here on the outer edge, and then we'll take some more, and then I'll reach back up right up in here and take that next stage out of there. So we'll do a little bulk removal here. Any way we want. So this gets us just about to where we are turned at on our finish cuts. Stuff is fairly noisy. And you can see it's so soft how that chunk, some of the some big chunks just kind of have come out of there. And so now we're going to start to turn around that corner. And if I put you in the overhead, it'll help you to see. How am I doing on time, by the way, anyway? 12:40, okay. In the overhead, so we're here, and we're starting to go down into the base now. So we're making that turn around the corner as we come down. Now this section in through here up to, we're good up to right there. And now we're starting to make this turn right in here, okay? Now I got about 20 minutes, so that should be fine. Get the goggles back on. Readjust our tool rest a little bit. So again, I'm going to work about another 2 inches. And in a minute here, I'm going to check for any more new cracks. I haven't heard any, but that doesn't mean they're not there. So I can see right up in here is where I need to start making my blend. And I'm actually watching over on the opposite side now. So I come in, pick up the cut, and watch my cut line on the opposite side. Oftentimes I'll just use my fingers as my gauge. Okay. Making that turn nicely. I'm going to take a little bit more out of here with the bigger gouge, just bulk removal. And then we can keep on going. And this is all going to go around the corner. Once I round the corner just a little bit further to about here, then it's all straight down, virtually straight down. Okay, so let's move the tool rest in a little bit closer. Make sure everything's good there. And again, I got my camera switcher so far away. Well, what I'm doing is I'm working right here. I just occasionally look over the top, and I can see the back side, and I can see where the tool is. And if I put you on the overhead, so when I'm working right in here with the tool, I'm looking over to here. Okay. Back to the inside, a little bit more bulk removal. And that depth just about gets me all the way around the corner. Just about. So now I will finish from here. Last place I stopped right in here, down into here. Which will turn that corner because it's a fairly sharp turn right in there. Okay. And I think I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my small tool with the traditional style. It's kind of, there's a bottom feeder tool. That's a Mike Mahoney tool that Carter & Son has in a larger size, and it's the same basic principle as that. It's just this is a small version. So come up here, pick up the cut. Last place I was working. Might need a little more tool rest support for this small tool, so I'll move it in pretty close. And again, I'm looking over the top, looking around the corner, and at the opposite side. Get rid of that excess right there. So I can feel that turn. This turn is coming around nicely. See what that looks like out of curiosity. So we've got, the pattern is nice on this side, quite nice. It's not bad here, but we've got a little bit of darkness in here. Okay. So I want to make a couple cuts. I've got some ridges here. I want to cut back up here, through here, make a couple cuts to clean that up. And we'll just make these nice, light, clean cuts. Change that tool rest height just a little bit. Bring it up for this smaller tool. Okay. Just about where I want to be right here, thickness wise. Sweep across there, get rid of some of that waste because it's kind of in my way. And I'm trying not to overuse this tool because I want to keep it nice and sharp. And again, I just watch the cut line over on the opposite side here as I go down inside. Okay. That's pretty good right to that point. We have a uniform thickness all the way through here. So a little more bulk removal. We can jump back in here with a carbide tool if we want. You can see the type of curls we're getting coming out of here. Good hamster bedding. I do have some curved tool rests somewhere. A lot of people like to use a curved rest when they're going inside something like this. Not sure where they are, but I have them. So that's working with your carbide tool. We can also do the same thing with the bowl gouge. Now, one thing I want to keep in mind, start thinking about is, and I'll pop up here to the overhead, how do I want to keep this full depth that I have here? Remember, I cut a lot of extra wood away. This may be a little taller than I really want it to be. I may want to shorten that up. So I don't want to go too far on the inside. If that's going to be the case, pop up here for a second. I want to make sure that I don't take too much out of the middle if I'm going to be cutting some of this off back here to finish out what I want that to look like. So as you get to that point, when you're in the bottom here, start thinking about how much do we want to take out, okay? So you always want to keep thinking, one or two steps ahead to make sure you're on track with what your overall plan was, or is turning into, as the case is sometimes. Things don't always come out the way you started. You end up with a different project sometimes, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is cool. Let me get a quick sip here, just before we wrap up today. 10 minutes left to go. So I'll take a little bit more out of the inside here, right out of the bottom. Now go back to a little bit bigger tool just because of the reach over the tool rest. There's you can see a little bit of a split there that'll end up getting filled. That one runs a little bit more as well. So because we have to fill those, we're going to end up sanding this guy a good bit. And I'll lighten up on my tool here. So if you can see this line right in here, that's what I'm picking up. Picking up the cut right there, watching on the opposite side. Okay, because I'm pretty close to what I think I want to make my bottom. I'm going to leave about an inch extra on here. Okay, because I think I'm going to take about an inch off of the back side. So I am pretty happy with that profile right there. Okay, so it's a long reach with the little tool. We'll experiment, see if we can come across there and make a clean cut across the bottom. I don't have a big tool ground in the bottom feeder style, if you will. Just want to clean up the bottom. You hear the tool vibrating over the tool rest a little bit. Now I do have, and I don't use them much, I do have a scraper. We've got a bowl scraper here. But if I come in with a bowl scraper, it does tend to lift up the grain, especially the end grain, and it kind of makes it lift up and tear out. And you end up having to fix it with the sandpaper. And I've actually got a smoother cut and a nice cut across the bottom here. So I would rather, knowing how soft this wood is, I would rather sand out what I have to in the few tool marks that are in there with that. So I'm going to pop those goggles off. Okay. I actually like the pattern of the wood. The wood is beautiful down in there. All right. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, what I would do next is, this guy is ready to sand. I would leave it right here in the chuck, and we're not going to sand it today. I would sand the inside and the outside, get it complete, fill up any of the cracks with the glue. No, go ahead and glue up any of your points. Sand it, seal it, probably dye it, and see how the dye works, if I like the dye look or not. I may end up sanding it off if I didn't, so that's why I want to leave it in the chuck. And then the last thing I would do is I would pop it out of the chuck, turn it around, and I would either put it in a set of big bowl jaws, like say the Big Easy bowl jaws, or I would just reverse chuck it, which, let me show you real quick. I think I've got time. If I didn't have a set of jaws to hold it around, on the outside, there are other ways. So let me see what chucks I can throw something in here, and I'll show you how to take a tendon off without a set of bowl jaws. It's real simple, real easy. Just out of here. So we're going to leave this guy in the chuck for a little more CA glue, and it's sanding. Real happy with it. It's a really cool piece. All right, and like I say, I'm going to shorten that bottom up a little bit. So we'll set this right over here. Let me see what I've got here. Let me pop you just to the overhead for a second while I walk in front of the camera. There's a piece over here. Yeah, that'll work. Let's see here. So this is the piece I was talking about that heard that crack pop the other day. It has closed up now, but nonetheless. Let's see. What do I have for scraps laying around in here? I usually have little scraps of wood that have a tenon on them, but we'll use a rubber chucky today, just to show you. I'll throw, I think this Vic Mark will hold that. All I gotta do is find the wrench for it. Over here in this mess. I think that's it right there. Yeah. So if it'll hold this little chucky guy. Typically I put a piece of wood in the chuck that matches the curvature of the bowl, and I usually have scraps over in the shop next door, which is where I actually turn if I'm going to turn something that I really want to get turned. Turn a piece put a piece of wood in the chuck, and let me show you here on the end. Say that was pretend that's a piece of wood.
turn the piece to match the profile, the radius of your piece. All right. And then one of my favorite things to use is an old pot grip. Let's say if I had a piece of wood there, what we want is friction. We want the most friction we can get. And the pot grip is also going to help keep it from marring up your piece at all. Okay. So I do have to grab the tailstock up here real quick. This is the easiest, cheapest way to get rid of your tenon. Take your tenon off when you're all done. Again, when I first started turning, I learned this from Jimmy Clues. I learned so much from Jimmy. Jimmy's been my mentor, go-to guy in my turning as I learned and learned. Bring my tailstock right up to the center, especially if I marked the center. I'll put you on the end here. So as long as it turns pretty close to true, and you can see in the overhead, it's out just a little bit, but it's not going to affect the bottom for what I'm going to show you today. All right, but what I need is the tension here so that the piece doesn't spin. Okay. So now the piece, I have enough pressure from the tailstock, but you don't want more pressure than necessary, because if you have too much pressure from the tailstock, when you turn this tenon down to a little cone like we're going to, the cone will split. Okay. So if this were in bowl jaws, then this would be not even here, wouldn't have to be necessarily in the way. But what we want to do is turn this tenon down to a little cone. All right. It's quite easy to do. A couple of ways to go about it. You can use your carbide tools. You can use your bowl gouges. I always use the little 1/4 inch or 3/8 from Carter & Son. And we're going to turn this down to just a little cone. And probably the best way to show it to you is in the overhead. And I'm just going to use my little 1/4 inch gouge. I'll raise that tool rest up a little bit. And we'll just start to cut this tenon away. And if you watch it from the end, you'll see what I'm doing here. We just start to cut this away. Then we'll come back and start to take away from the outside again. You can't quite see in the overhead, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop here real quick, and I'm going to slide the whole apparatus so that you can see how this cone develops. So I'm going to slide headstock and tailstock and all. So you'll be able to see in the overhead. Okay, and back in place here. Everything's snugged back up. You can still see the end shot. Okay, might be a little out of focus because it's pretty far away now. So in the overhead, all you can see is the cone. So I'm going to flatten this out, make it slightly concave.
Again, it doesn't really matter if this isn't perfectly flat. The closer the better, but nobody will ever notice that it's sitting off by a 32nd from flat. But in the overhead, if you take your tool and put it in here and you see a little bit of daylight in there, and we need a little bit more. You want that to be concave so that it always sits on the outer edge. Give myself a little more speed here. I'll show you that one more time from the end camera. Make a nice light pass to clean this up. And then you start to carve into the turn it down into a cone. And this is where I think the overhead's going to be the best shot for you. And the carbide detail tool works great for this. You can do it with your ball gouge here, a little 1/4 inch ball gouge, indeed. Okay. If you take a detail tool in the carbide world, the little diamond guy, diamond shape, get that out where you can see. And what we want to do is cut that cone, and then we can come back on this side, keep taking it away, and the softer the wood, the bigger you need to leave this. If the wood is really strong and hard, you can have it be fairly small. It's all a matter of how much you're going to have to sand. If it breaks, so that's the thing, if you break it, then your piece flops all around. Okay? Now this poplar's not super strong, and I got a funny shadow, so it's a little hard to see down in here. I think that'll do. That's as much as I want to go with a piece of poplar. So I just get a chisel. Let's get this out of the way. And we are in which camera? We're in the overhead camera. And now you can see, as I tilt the angle just a little bit, you can see it's just a little bit of a nub down in here, right? Okay. And if I go to the end camera, you can see as well, just a little bit of a nub in the cone there. All right. And all we need to do, you can just use your banjo, set it on something, get the tailstock out of the way. Looks like, yeah, you can see it in the end camera. Oh, that way. We're going to take a chisel. If I only knew where my mallet was, I'll use a fake mallet. So we're going to go with the grain. You see how the grain is running through the piece. Come right in here and go overhead. And just with your mallet and your chisel, just cut that loose. That's all there is to it. So you end up with just a little teeny nub right here. And I'll pick that up a little bit closer. Again, it's kind of hard to see in the light, but you have just a little teeny nub right there. You go to the end, you can see it. Just that little nub,
and you can actually pare that away with your chisel some more. Sand it up, and that's how you get rid of your tenon. Your piece is all done. There's your bottom, ready to sand and sign and finish. Jeff Peters, I'm just wrapping up. I'm headed for lunch, but I'm glad you made it, bud. It's good to see you. So that's the easiest way to get rid of a tenon without a set of bowl jaws or anything else. And you can do the same thing with any piece like that. Again, keep all your little scraps of wood. Mine are next door. Put them in the chuck. Turn them to fit so that you get a nice contour, and your pot grip there keeps it from marking it up. If you use a rubber mouse pad, which is people like to try, but if it spins, it leaves the black rubber marks in your piece. If you use a cotton pot grip, all it'll do, if it was to spin, is to polish the piece. So it works out great. A lot of fun, easy way to do it. Virtually no expense. Arthur, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Bob, thank you. So that's a lot of fun today. Like I say, I'll sand that guy up, fill up the cracks, and put some. I'm going to put some color on that, because I know by putting the dye on it that it got dark, and so I think it's not going to have the contrast I want. But some dye on there, that would be great. So you'll see it one day. I'll get that sanded up and dyed up. You know how I am about finishing things. But I had a great time. I appreciate everybody coming in today. It looks like I'm a 10 after I went long. I'm sorry, guys. But everybody, Bob, thank you, and Jeff and Joe, everybody who hung out with me today. If you are not a member of the Monday Methods Wood and Resin Turning group on the Spirecraft in Facebook, pop over there and join us. We meet on Thursday nights also. We do a live, use Google Meet, and I'm right in here in the shop or studio and answer questions one-on-one or 10-on-1. It's always a great time. Typically I want to talk about what we just did and what we're going to do on Monday Methods, but it's open to any other discussion as well. I just wanted to throw that in there. Everybody, thank you so much for coming the first Monday of the new year. Let's look forward to a good year in 2021, and I will see you Thursday or next Monday. Any questions, shoot me an email, whatever it takes. Give me a call. Love to talk to you. Everybody, have a great day, and thank you very much. And I'm going to turn to the overhead camera and say good day. Bye now. Overhead camera.